You're good, right? Still, I'm not here.
So he pulled in the
Perfect.
driveway, and the guy coming up fast behind him was a neighbor that lived up at 8th and Hokie, and he was chewing my neighbor out for calling animal control because he lets his dogs run.
Yeah, some people think that's why you moved to these areas, so that they're.
Yeah, and he also built a carport or
ready?
something right on the property line.
Okay, this is the notice of a special workshop meeting of the Golden Valley Fire District Governing Board with the Lake Mojave Ranchos Fire District Governing Board. Call to order. Okay, roll call of board members.
Tony DeMille here.
Randy Osborne here.
Neil Ballou here.
Gary Juno here. Note that Sue is absent. Okay. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary, can you make a note of who else is in the meeting?
Yeah, I think they should have done roll call too.
Okay,
Yeah, we did.
yeah, I had a roll call for your board also.
Okay. Roll call, Ellen Ray Bauer.
Charlotte Kiffer. You betcha.
Joe Campbell.
Deborah Cass.
Okay. All right, this is for discussion only of the IGA intergovernmental agreement with the Lake Mojave Ranchos Fire District for possible chief service and administrative services. And as a reminder, this workshop falls under the open board meeting rules and regulations. And this workshop is for discussion, therefore no final decisions will be voted on by either Lake Mojave or Golden Valley. We want to run this in an organized manner, and nobody speaks on top of anybody. Just I'll run it, and whoever raises their hand will get to go next. I'll try and keep it in order, so nobody's talking over, and Mindy won't be able to take the minutes. So Mindy's going to take, our controller's going to take the minutes of this meeting. All right. So would you like to present your?
Well, like we spoke of on the meeting May the 1st, we're just looking to secure management services. And while initially it would have included administrative services to some degree, that has been pretty much mitigated with our internal service. The administrative assistant that we thought was going to leave has advised us that she will be staying, and our part-time volunteer in the office has advised us that she will be staying as well. So our requirement for administrative services will be little to none. Possibly a real brief, maybe a month or two coverage until we get somebody positioned in the office. So we do have in our budget for a part-time person in the office to cover the administrative duties that the chief is currently doing. So what we are looking to do, and I'd like to thank you all, first of all, for even allowing us to be here and present and to consider this management agreement. So what we need is chief services primarily. And if that can be combined with internal, what we already have as personnel, to keep the costs low, that would be even better. So I really didn't prepare any kind of a speech, but that's what we're here. We just need we need chief services on a contract basis.
Okay. Anybody have any questions from our board to them?
Not yet.
I do. Your personnel, your line guys, you have 6 full-time positions?
We have 6 full-time positions. They have never been filled.
Right, you only have 1.
Currently we have 1 full-time.
So have you worked on the last 3 months filling those?
Yes, we have, there's been ads out. Chief DeMille was putting ads out in January, we have a constant need for personnel, so there's ongoing ads. Since our last meeting here, we've stepped that up, and our administrative assistant has ads out in other places. I'm not sure if we've had any response back from that, but our one full-time person on shift is actively pursuing other personnel, making contact with people who we had on shifts before our insolvency.
So your whole coverage is based on POCs, that's just except for him.
That's pretty much the way it's been for the last few years. But we do have potential for, there's 2 potential full-timers coming back that were with us before the insolvency. At this point.
You're running full crews right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is 2.
2 per shift, okay.
But it's actually, the way it's supposed to be is 2 full guys in Dolan and POCs and,
One in Meadview. We've never had 2 in Meadview.
I know what that is supposed to be,
Right,
but it never happened.
Well, we need to get our volunteer base built up so that we have some additional personnel. We don't have the funding to fund full-time in Meadview, as well as the 2
If
in
you have
Dolan.
funding to put somebody in the office to answer the phone,
In Meadview?
no.
No, in Dolan, we have that already in the budget for a part-time person in the office. There's a few duties that'll need to be done in the office, that the chief is currently doing. We'll need, in the office, but like I said, we have a part-time person budgeted for that, 20 hours a week.
It's a paid part-time.
Yes, oh yes. Currently, there's a part-time volunteer in that position, but that will need to be changed to a paid position. As of the 1st of July, our new fiscal year. It's budgeted for the new fiscal year.
Chief, do you have any questions for him?
Well, one of them is that you said your current chief has duties, administrative duties. Can you kind of outline what those administrative duties are
Yes.
that you're asking us to do?
Well, I'm not sure that we'll need you to do it. They're picking up the mail and processing whatever checks come in the mail, which is minimal now because we have a new billing service that it's an automatic deposit, so we don't have so many checks coming through. So probably on a weekly basis at the most, just for the month of June, would be all that we would need, because we will have somebody in there as of the 1st of July. Or at least we have the funding available for the 1st of July, and we'll be looking for that position to be filled. So it's just picking up the mail and processing, process the ambulance billing payments, which that is no longer an issue because the new billing company will be doing that. We need entering the accounts payable into QuickBooks, depositing the accounts receivables to the bank account. We have records management duties that need to be done in the office, but that can be postponed. There's not immediate need. Checking the timesheets and sending them to the AA, the administrative assistant. New employee setup, employee terminations, answering the phone when the personnel are out. That's all I have on this list.
Now, those are all things that your current chief does
Right.
as of right now. And how much time are you expecting myself or Chief Martin, if this goes through, to be out there in your office answering phones when your guys are out and doing all the things that you just named off that list?
I would say that I wouldn't worry about answering the phones for that 1 month. We do have an answering service, voicemail. It would be the, on a weekly basis, picking up the mail and processing that. Entering the accounts payable into QuickBooks. I think our volunteer does that. Is that right, Tony? Does she enter? payables into
Nobody
QuickBooks?
but Karen enters anything into QuickBooks.
Okay, you communicate that to her through
Yes.
TeamViewer. So somebody would need to communicate that, once they pick the mail up, they would need to communicate, what arrived in the mail for payables. Communicate that to Karen. Depositing the accounts receivable, there shouldn't be too much of that, because that's all being direct deposited now. But there will be a few, those could accumulate. We get very few checks in the mail anymore.
That could be picked up like once a week.
Once a week, I'm thinking once a week for the things that need to be done. As far as new employee setup and terminations, I don't know. That would just be on a case-by-case basis. Hopefully we have a whole lot of new employees to set up, that would be real nice.
Scheduling.
Oh, scheduling. Did I have it on there? Oh, that's up here at the top. Scheduling of personnel, that's huge.
That's not administrative, that's part of the.
Well, that's true,
duties
yeah,
anyway.
that'll be part of the chief duties, right, so, down in the administrative part. I don't know, a few hours once a week, 3 hours should be plenty to do the critical stuff that needs to be covered on a weekly basis.
Well, as we've discussed in, you and I, and we're here to discuss it with the rest of the board, my biggest concern is personnel. As board member Blue already, discussed a little bit, you don't have those people in place, and that is my biggest concern. We cannot do what your current chief does, and that's fill holes in the schedule.
Right.
This cannot impact what we do here.
Right, understand.
By taking this on. So, that's my biggest concern. And the fact that your chief is leaving at the end of the month raises even more of a concern. So, we do not have the personnel to send out to make up for loss of personnel.
Right.
And when I say loss, I'm talking about full-time people, because you can have 30, 40, 50 people as POCs, but you can't make them work. They're just that part-time. So it doesn't really matter how many part-time people you have. What does matter is the full-time people, and that they're in place with, vetted resumes and applications, and that really should be done by your chief. That's part of his job. As it would be mine if this was to go through. So that's my biggest concern, is just not having those people in place, because you have to have them. We can't be worried about your guys' schedule, because the people weren't put in place, and we knew this going into that.
Right.
So, we're not asking for, and then they have to be paramedics. That's the other thing. You guys have a CON, and you can't lose it. That CON's been out there. You guys have had an ambulance service for many years, and that's a lot of the problems with some of the smaller districts, fire districts that end up getting CONs, is they can't maintain them.
Right.
Golden Springs has been able to do that for a long time. They've done a good job at doing that. If you guys lose that CON, you stand to lose a whole lot. And I am sure you guys know that. It's a 30-year budget, you know that.
Right.
That means a lot to not just your budget, but the people that live out there. And so you can't run an ambulance service with EMTs. So it doesn't matter how many EMTs you have to have the medics. So if you lose your CON, you're looking at AMR, to provide services for you guys. And I can't speak for AMR. I haven't discussed anything with AMR, but there's a good chance that you won't get an ambulance stationed at Lake Mojave Ranchos.
No, yeah, they said they would.
They'll be responding to you guys just like they respond to Wikia, and it's 45 minutes to an hour. So the person that was having chest pain or a cardiac event that could have been helped within whatever your average response time is, 7 minutes, whatever it is, 5 minutes, there's a good chance that person may not survive, because now they're waiting an hour just for somebody to get on scene. it's extremely important, and I'm sure you guys understand that. So personnel is huge for you guys, and I have to tell you, you know, me stepping into this and being responsible, I'm not comfortable with it without you guys having the right people in place.
Understand
You
that.
know. So, you know, we can train people. You know, we have certified training people within our district, within our fire department. We can't make them paramedics.
Right.
You know, we can train them as long as they have their EMS certifications and their firefighter 1 and 2 or equivalent. We can help train new firefighters. That's the least of your problems. You know, that's something that I'm not concerned about. But I am concerned about your lack of personnel and the lack of medics. You know, so.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, there's other things that I'm concerned about, but that's the big one. You know, that would be, if you guys had that in place, then I would go on to, you know, some of my other concerns. That's the big one right now.
Yeah, I understand that.
I kind of feel a little bit like maybe, you know, the cart was put before the horse. You know, some of this stuff, you know, should have been maybe done a long time ago. You know, you guys, for whatever reason, you know, your chief's retiring. You know, for whatever reason, he's retiring, and I think, you know, the bottom line is we know why your chief's retiring. And I think before that was even put in place, probably should have figured out what we're going to do over here before we just let a guy that's you know, handling things. You know, that's a concern to me. You know, I don't want to be you know, put in a position where I'm feeling micromanaged either. You know, you ask me to do operations for your fire district. I expect that you guys allow me to handle that. You know, and if people need to be put in place and put in place the way I see fit, you know, flyers are great. I know you and I discussed that because that's one of the things that I said. You know, probably should, you know, put out some flyers because I didn't really know your budget. You know, but I know that the National Testing Network was discussed before. That's huge, you know, for you guys. I mean, if you could afford it, it was in your budget. The chief brought it up once before. That's probably something that should have been done, you know, because you're not going to find people around here that don't have firefighter jobs already to go out there and drop what they have and go out there and work full time. You know, they're going to go out there part time because that's what we have. You know, you're going to have to attract people that are from outside the area. You know, I mean, it's no different than us. That's why all the fire departments around here use that. So, I like I said, my biggest thing right now is the personnel, and if that can be fixed, you know, I think your chief needs to have a lot to say. He knows what that district needs as far as personnel go, but I think he needs to be a big part of that until he leaves, and if that can be put into place. You know, we have discussion on top of that, you know, and that's more between, you know, my concerns with the board versus personnel. You know, we do have a lot to offer. I mean, there's you know, we all know the good things that could come out of this if it was to work, you know, but there are some things that there's going to have to be some give and take. So that's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Have you got any results on your ads or applications or anybody applying?
We have 2 applications in for the fire chief position, but we haven't received any yet for personnel.
Does Tony review that to see about hiring those guys or?
I have a question for the chief. It had nothing to do with the IGA, but when you're advertising for positions, is your physical agility testing part of that?
We use the CPAT. We've got CPAT licensure through national testing, so we let them do that part. We require that.
But it's required.
But
right?
then they come. It is required.
Okay.
However, it's not. It isn't mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So fire districts can just choose the testing portion of national testing.
Mm-hmm.
They take the team test, the fire team test, and then you can pull from them. And if you have your own physical agility in place, because we make them do both, they have to come here and pass ours too. So you don't have to require, you know, that. Now, and that's, again, that's a standard. So, you know, we would roll our standards right out to Lake Mojave Ranchos. So whatever we do now is what you guys would have to do then, you know, and if this moves forward. But it's not a requirement for you guys to do that now. You could just, you know, bring them on. I mean, you don't have to have, it's up to, it's your SOG, it's your policy, whatever's in your policy as far as physical agilities, bringing people on. Some people, maybe smaller districts don't do it at all, you know, but by using national testing, it's $500 a year. If you implement the CPAT licensure, that's another $1,500. It's just a one-time thing, and so, but that's a long process.
Mhm.
I'm the one that put that together here for this, and it took a little bit because there's a resume, there's a thing you have to fill out, documentation, and there's stuff that you have to get within your department. So that's not an easy, you know, it's just not, you pay them $1,500 and it's over. But really that's up to your, right now it's up to what, you know, you guys have out there.
Our administrative assistant is currently looking at the NTN. She was, because that and the other one are both about $500 a year, and we're running over budget for this fiscal year, so we're trying to keep our expenses low. So initially, the pursuit of personnel was done through less expensive means like the minor ad and some free places after and what have you. So, but NTN is definitely at the top of the list for the next step to take, and as soon as we possibly can, we'll be going with NTN. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything?
What can you offer us?
I think that would be mainly up to the chief.
Well, like I said, you know, as far as, you know, chief services, I mean, you're replacing one chief with two. You know, this is on a smaller scale. It's kind of this is the same thing that Kingman Fire is currently doing with NACFED Fire District. You know, you guys you're getting two chiefs, you know, for one. I mean, we have, you know, a fire marshal. We have 3 fire investigators. We have certified hazmat people. We have people that are certified fire that can train. You know, what's that?
Instructors.
Yeah, the fire instructors. You know, we have CPR and first aid and certified CPR and first aid instructors through American Heart. We have a whole list of things. You know, we have a public education guy that's gone back to National Fire Academy and done that. He did, you know, he organizes that stuff for us. You know, we have things that we can offer. You know, and that's why I said, you know, if this was to move forward, we would expect that the standards would be the same as they are here. Training, the training would be the same. The documented training, not just doing training, but it would have to be documented. We have a lot to offer. You know, I mean, we do, and we would like to share some of those things with you. And we know that, you know, that this is, you know, eventually, like some of the other chiefs have said, that, you know, this is the future, you know, of Mojave County. It's the future of Arizona. There's a lot of districts and fire departments right now that are trying to join forces just because of things like this right now. Some of those are able to reciprocate a little bit easier as far as personnel and equipment. That's not the case here. You guys are a long way out, and we understand that, you know, your staffing is minimal, equipment's minimal. There's not a lot of things that Golden Valley is going to be able to receive from, you know, Lake Mojave Ranchos, except for monetary, you know. And because you guys are so far out, you know, it's going to take a long time for us to get there, unless one of us happens to be there at the time something happens. We just have to make sure that whatever we do, we're not using, and we're all kind of in the same boat, just 2 different scales, you know, as far as how Proposition 117 hurt all of us, you know. We we don't have, like I said before, we don't have the personnel to just send out there if you guys are short. We
Right.
just don't have it. And if we happen to have that personnel, you guys would have to pick up the cost for that. And not only the cost for that person, but the person that's backfilling, so that we could stay at our staffing level. I feel like we have things to offer. It's just like anybody else, because the your guys is, the location, geographical location, it's going to take a little bit for anybody to come out there and help, just like it's always been. But so having this agreement, isn't going to fix some of those things. However, I think standard-wise, because I really don't know what standards, Lake Mojave Ranches has set. But we do have things that we can offer. Like I said, I would like to see it happen. I know this is gonna be, where everything is leading to, eventually. And I know Ted Martin came out and talked to you guys from Mojave Valley and told you, eventually it's gonna happen. And we would like to do it on our own terms rather than have, the counties come down and say, look, some of the smaller fires, it's becoming really tough. Like I said, Dolan Springs has been very good at managing their CON. Other places around the state haven't been. And we don't want to be forced into something, we would rather do it our own way and with the budgets that we have now, even though they're not a lot,
Right.
but trying to make things work rather than being told they have to work and now this is what you're going to get. So, I feel like we have the ability to help, but we are limited as well. And like I said, it comes right back to the personnel. You can't be a chief of a place if you don't have any employees.
Right.
So that's something that's definitely going to have to be worked on.
The personnel issue has been an issue for many years, and it's really been a bad issue for the last few years. We just have not managed to get it up to speed with other than POCs, and I agree, I think the
Can
NTN...
I ask him a question?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
If we do manage to get some more volunteers, especially in the Meadview area, we only got one volunteer. If we get some people to volunteer, you have the ability to help train them?
Absolutely. I mean, we can train, but here's the thing. We have volunteers too.
Yes,
we don't have a whole slew of volunteers. It's not like it used to be back in the old days where you could get them. They've never been really prevalent in the West Coast. It's kind of an East Coast thing. But smaller districts like yours and ours, we have volunteers. We don't have as many as we used to, but we train those, and our volunteers aren't allowed to cover shifts. We don't allow them because our volunteers don't have the proper certifications. So they get the in-house trainings, and our guys do that. Our personnel train these people.
I understand that.
But we don't put them on trucks by themselves. They may be able to drive an engine to the fire scene if we need it, but that's to meet certified trained firefighters there. They're not just there to be on their own. It's a huge liability and not one we're willing to take.
Plus they have driver's training before they even get in that engine.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All of our people have, and we have certified drivers trainers within our department that, again, that would be a standard that you guys would have to follow.
Definitely.
How do you calculate what the cost of the services would be if we worked out at even a temporary or more than temporary? How do you figure that out?
Well, I think, NACFED basically set the rules, and it's something that, we would have to take a look at, see what that contract all entailed, the amount that was given to you guys back then, of course, that CPUI would have to, that was 2013, so you'd have to carry that forward. But with, the amount of services that, we could offer versus what NACFED was able to offer you, and I talked to Chief Moore about, what he was able to do. And he says, I couldn't be out there but a day a month if I could give him that, we could do better than that. And we would have to be compensated for that too. And like I said, all the other stuff that I said, that just adds to that. So that would be an absolute starting point of what they had and where it would, whatever that CPUI would, to this day, would be. And then you'd probably have to add something to that. You know? So, we're not, we don't want to take this, we're not here to the whole purpose of doing this is so that it's helping you guys save some money. We're not going to take everything that your chief's position had left, behind. But Golden Valley has to be compensated for their services. The Golden Valley taxpayers can't pay. It can't come out of their coffers. So it would have to be. We'd have to figure out, what's left behind, what's on, what's left on the table, and figure out what our services are, so that you guys have money to put back in your capital. I mean, that's where it needs to go. That whatever you save needs to go into your capital, and maybe some to your personnel. Whatever your starting salary is, that's we might have to look at bumping that up some, to entice people to go out there. Benefits packages, maybe. I don't, again, not knowing exactly what your budget is, I can't tell you all that. But we don't want to go out there and just take everything that that's not what this is all about. All that stuff would have to be looked at and factored into, but that would be a starting point at a bare minimum, whatever was in their contract at the time, because it's all based on the same, the same thing, the amount of time that we could spend out there, what we're able to offer. And then, of course, that CPUI. So,
have you had an opportunity
CPIU,
to see that agreement that LMRFD had with NACFED years ago?
I did look at it, and I talked to Chief Moore, not in too much detail about it. But again, if there's things that can be, if we're going to move forward, I would look at that a little bit heavily, more heavily, and maybe discuss more with Chief Moore. Again, doing what you guys are wanting to do is valuable. I mean, it's good because, the alternative is, trying to find somebody, whether it's in your organization or somebody else, it could impact the future of Lake Mojave Ranches. I think the chiefs that are in this area, I mean, we all respect one another and we all work well together. You throw somebody in there that maybe is not as well respected, you might not get, some of the stuff or some of the help from these other chiefs. They try to go out and try to get help from other chiefs. It might not be as much as you would if you had somebody that's already in the game. So that's another plus. I work very well with all the chiefs, and some of them outside the area even. I've been able to get information from. So to answer your question, that would be the bare starting point, is whatever that amount would be.
Are you, and I just want to clarify, are you saying that unless we have the staff up to a certain level that you're not interested in even an interim contract with LMRFD, or you would be interested in an interim contract, but that would be a main focus that we would have to put a lot of our effort into getting it up to snuff?
Sure. Well, I would.
Point of order, that's not up for discussion, it's kind of leading to a possible decision. You think you might want to stay away from?
Yeah, I just, all I'll say is, it's a huge concern, and I don't want to be the black eye of Lake Mojave Ranches, for myself as a fire chief, or, our Golden Valley Fire Board, by getting into something that is not basically stable. I mean, I go out there and I'm not saying if the personnel aren't in place, that I can just go out there and save the day, because if I can't do any more than what you guys have been able to do already, or try to do, my first thing would be national testing. I mean, I would do that immediately. I'd find it somewhere in the budget to get that, it's $500, but I would find it somehow. Donations, fundraisers, whatever, I would try to get that, because it's extremely important. It's hard for me to tell you that, yeah, I'm going to go out there and jump on a ship that, again, if you can't be a chief if there's nobody, if no employees, no firefighters, and I don't want people coming back looking at me saying, well, Golden Valley took over and, you know, now they lost their CON. It's just not something I am willing to take the responsibility for.
No, I was just gonna say, I've been with this district in one way or another in the fire district for over 30 years. And I've seen boards tell their chiefs, you have to do this, you have to do this, and that's not the way it's supposed to work. And I'm talking for me, I'm not talking for our board. But I'm not gonna go for this because of what he's talking about. If you don't have personnel, I don't care if you pay us millions of dollars. I'm not gonna tell him he has to go out there and run something that's really not there. I'm not gonna do it because it's not fair to him. And just like he just said, he goes out there, we take it and he goes out there and then it folds and you lose your CON. Well, it's not gonna be your fault, it's gonna be our fault. We're gonna get blamed, not you. And that ain't gonna happen. And that's me saying it, that's not what
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
So what we basically need to do is get our personnel up to 6 full-time or 3 full-time, 3 full-time paramedics on shift. Is that what
Well,
we need to do before you?
I mean,
Point of order, again, we're not here to make decisions or make, proposals over decisions. This is discussion only, so I don't feel comfortable with anybody saying, well, if you do this, we're gonna do this, or if this happens,
We
then
can
this.
recommend what they should.
We
That's
can
what I-
definitely recommend,
that's what I'm
yes.
asking.
We can
Yeah.
recommend.
yeah, and again, you know, it takes 2 people minimum to operate that ambulance, and that's really the bread and butter of that place. You know, I mean, if you don't have the personnel on that ambulance, you know, so that's 2. You know, that's 2 full-time people. Whether it's an EMT and a paramedic, I just said paramedics because you got to have at least 1 medic on that ambulance.
Right.
So you're looking at least 3 full-time paramedics.
Right.
You know, and 3 EMTs. And I know you already have 1, from what I understand.
1 EMT.
1 EMT.
I think, Ellen, that a lot of the questions you're asking are questions for operations, which would be him. So when you ask questions like that to the board, we have our opinion, but we still hired him to do a job.
Right.
If he don't do it, we'll find somebody who will. But he's very, very good at doing his job. That's why he's still here.
Right.
Okay? Don't forget operations.
Thank you.
Question. When the chief goes on vacation and he says, well, I've arranged for Golden Valley to cover, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what that person does when they cover. Can you help explain that?
I'm gonna clarify that since that was basically a gentleman's agreement between myself and Dave Martin. It was the Golden Valley Fire Districts and their board and their previous chiefs that allowed that to happen. And Dave Martin only covered chief officer call-outs, period. So when a chief officer was needed or when instruction was needed or needed to be given, that's what he did not go in and do any paperwork, he did not pick up any mail, he did not answer any phones. It was strictly chief officer call-out coverage. And that was a gentleman's agreement. That wasn't anything that was set in stone. It was based off of the mutual aid agreement that the 2 districts had with each other.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else got anything? You have anything?
It's like we know what we need to do.
How about you?
Have you,
I'm not saying nothing. I might get myself in
you say you got
trouble.
ads for firefighters, now how about paramedics? You could try to hire,
Yeah, absolutely. It's always firefighter, paramedic, and or EMT.
All right. I guess nobody else has anything. I guess we go to the public. Public wishing to speak on any agenda items?
We don't have a call to public.
We don't have it?
No,
Oh, okay, so we're done?
unless you want to ask the public if they want to speak.
That's up to you.
It's up to you.
We got a timer.
Okay. Does anybody in the public want to speak? Go ahead.
Lavelle Barnett, a resident here of Golden Valley in the fire district. If you all did something like this, I haven't heard anyone say, and maybe it's not the right time to bring it up, but if you all did something like this with an agreement, would the mutual aid agreement be canceled? This is, I know you guys can't answer that right now, and I just wanted to bring up the mutual aid agreement that is in place right now.
Yeah, I guess.
I wouldn't
we'll
think
discuss
it'd
that and
be
get
two
back-
contracts.
Get back with you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Huh?
We got
I didn't know.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Real fast.
Used it for years.
Me too.
Some sleep.